What's going on, guys? I'm going to be showing you how you can connect our universal plate lights to your bike. There's a couple different ways and I'm going to go through them. I'm going to say this as a disclaimer, this is an unofficial guide and it's just the way that I personally do it and how I do it on the bikes when they come into the studio. If you're super unsure, just take it to a mechanic and I'll get this on within 10 minutes. So the first and easiest way to do this is you can buy connector plugs. This goes from your OEM plug to the universal connectors and then onto the light. You can find these on eBay. They look a bit like this. Again, this is the easiest way to do it. It'll all be plug and play. There's no wiring to do. It's just simply plug in the connectors and that's it. The whole thing will be done. If you prefer to wire it, I'm going to just show you now how I do it with the plate lights. So we've got a tail tidy we've taken off another bike. This could also be your OEM plate holder. The most important thing is that it has this OEM plug for the plate light. So what we're going to do is we want to use this plug, of course, because it will be plug and play straight into the bike. We're going to just snip the wires down the line. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put on female bullet connectors. Which look a bit like this. That way, they'll plug into our male bullet connectors on our plate lights. To do this, we're going to need some wire strippers and some wire crimpers. So these have got crimpers along here and the strippers at the top here. These are super helpful. If you don't have a set of these, get a set. They're going to make this a lot easier for future things. Okay, so like we said, first things first is we're going to snip this wire. There's a nice bit of space down the line here where it's already split and outside the tubing, so we're going to cut there. Make sure you have enough space on either side of the wire for the original tail tidy light if you ever want to put that back on. And with the one we're working with, we want to make sure there's enough thread on there as well. So as you can see, we've cut it, but we need to expose the wires to put the bullet connectors on. So this may be a bit hard to see on camera, but what we're going to do is take the end of that wire and then we're going to feed it into here. Bit like this, and then we just little squeeze, and then now we have a nice exposed wire. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. We'll do the same for the other side. We just feed that in, and then we have a nice two exposed wires, as you can see there. So right, these two are stripped now. What we're going to do is just twist the wire ends to give it a little bit more strength. Do that on both wires. It's going to be really hard to see that, but they're just twisted a little bit. And then what I like to do is I like to fold these about in half. Again, this gives them a bit nicer thickness so that when we crimp it down on the bullet connectors, two wires folded over. As you can see, we have the female bullet connectors. Make sure they're not the male end, they should be at open end. We're going to take the smaller end and feed the wire through. Most bullet connectors actually have a little stopper piece on the inside, so if you look inside there, it'll be hard to see on camera, but on yours you'll see a little folded over part which will stop the wire coming all the way out. So we'll just feed that in, and I can feel it already hitting the end. And then once that's in at a nice point, we're going to take our crimp tool, and what I like to do is do two crimps on this little smaller circumference piece. So one at the bottom, one at the top. I do the bottom bit first to crimp onto the wire. So the bottom piece first, and then I crimp higher up later. Just most importantly, make sure that the wire is not all the way coming out and it's stopping in this piece here that we're crimping down on. So the bottom piece first. So that's the bottom piece first. Look a bit like that. We're going to repeat that again. Again, don't go too strong because you don't want to smash through the wire. So it'll look a bit like this, hopefully when you're done. Give it a little pull test, make sure that's nice. That one's pretty sturdy. So we'll just go over to the other wire now and try this one. So we'll just take this, feed it in, feel it stop. this down a piece. Bottom first, come up a little bit. And then again, once that's done, it should look a bit like this. So we'll take our plate light. As you can see, it has the male ends. Make sure we pull back this rubber to make sure we've got a good connection. So we pulled the rubber back, should look a bit like this. That way we're going to get a pure metal on metal connection when we plug it in. So the other thing to note is what wire goes where. You're not always going to have a nice black and red wiring like this. This is obvious because the black is normally always the ground and the red is normally the positive. But you won't always have this, it will depend on your bike. Like I say, the general rule I like to follow is black is neutral. So I normally marry up a black and a black, and then I'll plug the coloured wire in. So on our plate light, for example, we have a black and then we have a black and white one. So again, I would say black to black is going to be neutral, and then the black and white is going to be the positive. The way I like to do wiring and testing stuff when I'm not sure is I'll do the black to black as a pushed in connection. I then plug this into the bike first, and then when the bike's on, to make sure I don't blow anything, I just quickly tap connect and then see if the light works. So that way, if I was to plug it in all the way and then turn the bike on and it was wrong, it would end up blowing the light or blowing a fuse. So the easiest thing is to plug the neutral in, the one I think is definitely the neutral, and then plug the OEM plug into the bike, and then just quickly tap connect, and then that way the light will flash on, and then you know you have the wires the right way round. So we'll assume that is the correct way, as we don't have. So I'll plug those in. So there we are. Of course, you can use some electrical tape to clean this up, or you can use some heat shrinks to make the wires nice and black and tubed. But that's pretty much it. So if you're having trouble and your light's not turning on, make sure you swap over the connectors on your plug to make sure they're the right way round. If not, make sure you haven't blown the light. So what I would do is I would disconnect it from the plug. I would take these two wires. I'd find the black, which like I said is probably the neutral. And then I would hold it onto your battery's neutral and then touch the positive onto the positive and see if your light turns on. Again, swap it around if it's not working. One of them two ways with the battery should 100% turn the light on. If it doesn't, you may have done it wrong and you may have blown the light. So the other things to check, if the light works, but the plug isn't, you most likely have done a bad bit of crimping. So you could cut these off, re-crimp it, have more exposed wire for when you're crimping down, it has more wire to bite onto and connect with. That's the other thing to check. And then barring all of that, go to the mechanics. So I know that was a quick fly through, but like I say, that's how I do it unofficially. I think it's pretty easy. You just need a crimp tool, some wire strippers, and some of these female bullet end connectors. And then now you have an OEM connection for your plate lights. Let me know how you get on. Drop me a message if you need any help. And until then, see you on the road.